Hello and welcome back to Keystone, where today we're doing something a little different. This is a voiceover rather than live commentary because I was just testing out some new decks and this one got truly wild. I couldn't wait to show you guys how this one went, so let's start out here in the first match with the basics. Now, this deck's theme is indestructibly giant Protoss units. We're starting with Ulrezaj here. He's got a special ability. He consumes my own Dark Templar every turn so that their life essence can be converted into his own HP and also a psionic storm spell. The idea? We're going to do everything we can to keep him alive, feed him psionics every turn, and cast warp storms upon our opponents, all the while creating a bigger and bigger Archon. Now let's go ahead and see how that turned out here. Now, because he specifically consumes Dark Templar, basically this entire deck is nothing but Dark Templar. So we're going to be trying to get him out, keep him alive, and just have Dark Templar everywhere. Now, of course, Dark Templar are stealth units, so there's going to be a bit of play here in trying to make my Dark Templar be useful directly. Things like trying to get rid of their observers and such. Now, immediately, my first goal is to get all the supporting units I need in order to get Ulrezaj online. You see here, I'm looking to see what kind of stealth detection they have, which is none, so I'm quite happy to just send Dark Templar out here. But in order to keep Ulrezaj safe, I need a few things, because, well, he's a big unit, but there are plenty of spells in the game to get rid of big units. You can just overwhelm him, so he needs a little bit of support, especially in the early stages where he's not completely godlike yet. And to do that, I have a fair few cards. I have a few structures that can help defend him, things like shield batteries. I have a few units that can help with mobility, things like arbiters, which will recall him and other units when they are in danger. I have a spell, the name of which escapes me. I'll explain it when we come to it, and that enables me to change his AI from a tactical unit, a unit that runs back and forth, do damage opportunistically where he can, to a unit that stays strictly behind the main line of skirmish and just hangs out casting his spells. Now, because Ulrezaj is predominantly a spellcaster, when he consumes the souls of the Dark Templar, they don't actually make him more powerful, just tankier. He instead converts that power into spells to cast. He's not exactly the pinnacle of aggressive capabilities. So having him just sit behind the line is pretty much the ideal, unless you want to play super risky with him and send gigathick spellcaster to the front line for some reason. Now, as it stands, I'm just trying to search for those support cards. Yes, I could throw out Ulrezaj right now, and yes, I can do things like get him scaling, get him building up his HP, but really, I'm concerned that he's just going to get obliterated. You know, there's a bunch of Marines coming, there's some Hellions here, there's an Overseer in the middle that's providing detection, so any DTs I throw out there are, assuming they don't get consumed, are just going to get killed off. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this Queen and Pawn, which will blind all of the Overseers to give my existing DTs an opportunity to apply a little bit more damage, and I'm going to continue looking for the support cards I need. You'll notice one Archon on the board. That Archon is the size and strength of a normal Ulrezaj, and you'll see here in a moment, if I had played Ulrezaj already, he'd have gotten obliterated by these Marines. Just look at his HP. It's already gone. It's not gonna work. So we're just gonna keep playing units and keep looking for those support units for a better time for me to drop Ulrezaj on the board and start scaling him. And away goes my beautiful little Archon. Oh no. And he's gone. That Archon is quite nice. That is the Archon of Justice. Every heroic unit that expires on my team, or at least of my own, will convert into a Psionic Storm to cast later. You may note that Psionic Storm is kind of a running theme here. And now I believe is the time to play Ulrezaj. Not only do we have some units on the board, the enemies aren't sending anything, and I have Arbiters. Arbiters, as I just mentioned, are defensive units that sit back in the base. They don't go forward. Their sole purpose in life is to, well, play defensively, using crowd control effects, stealth fields, and recall ability. Anytime a unit wants to retreat, such as Ulrezaj when he takes a hit, will get instantly warped back to the defensive area and cloaked. So that way, he won't actually get, executed by something outside of some spellcast sniper removal kind of deal. And this is where Ulrezaj feeding starts, because we had a Dark Templar on the field due to, Queen and Pawn keeping things alive. Every turn, I get a Forbidden Knowledge. This comes from Ulrezaj himself. And every time we play a Forbidden Knowledge, it draws a Dark Templar card from my deck and gives me an uncontrollable power. Now, what does uncontrollable power do? It's Psionic Storm. Oh look, you can see Ulrezaj here. He took a hit, he tried to run away, and the Arbiter just warped him back to the safety behind the main line. Look at that. Uncontrollable power, just cast Psionic Storm. We're going to get to see the enemy units here getting hit by Psionic Storm. And that's just how that's going to work. All I have to do is make sure to play a Dark Templar every turn. That way Ulrezaj has something to consume. Look at all those Hydralisks coming in from the spawn. All of them at half health because they got hit by the Psionic Storm from the uncontrollable power. Honestly, I was expecting that to hit the Marines. I wasn't paying attention to the spawn zone. But that's fine. I'm just going to play another uncontrollable power because I can. And because we played a Dark Templar last turn, we get another Forbidden Knowledge. And we get to continue this cycle. Now, what makes uncontrollable power interesting is it's not just Psionic Storm. It's one Psionic Storm. Look at all those red Psionic Storms all over the place. It's one Psionic Storm cast per Forbidden Knowledge played. Which means that not only is it a decent card that just casts Storm, but it casts more and more Storm the longer that we feed our giant, growing in size Archon. This is where things are going to get even more exciting. I'm trying to figure out here if I have extra DTs. I do. So I don't need to play another DT this turn. Instead, I'm going to play another set of Arbiters just in case. There we go. Got it. Beautiful. And there's stasis. They're keeping the Arbiters are keeping themselves safe by blocking out these Scourge over here. But now I need more Dark Templar on the board. So I'm going to play another Forbidden Knowledge. I'm going to play another Uncontrollable Power to cast more Storms upon the opponents. And more importantly, I'm going to play the Daylom Architects. This will guarantee me to draw a Shield Battery. A Shield Battery? Well, it is a structure that regenerates the shields of our nearby units. Units that are in the defensive area. And who's in the defensive area? It's our Ulrezaj, the growing in size Archon. You may notice this Archon is literally growing in size here. Like, he's getting bigger. Every time we feed him, he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's beautiful. I like it. Now, the opponents, they're sending units, and they're sending a really big unit here. Not only that, but look at all of these Storms. All of their little units that they sent, all the Zerg, have gotten obliterated by the Storms. Now, they still have the giant Amon. He's got 4,000 HP. Compared to our Ulrezaj, which is at about the same size right now. Which is a little bit crazy. Just because, it's an Archon, not the biggest unit in the game. God, look at all those Storms just tearing them apart. They sent roaches into our backline. But yes, our Ulrezaj here is getting additional shields. It's beautiful. You love to see these shield batteries here healing the shields of Ulrezaj. Going to be playing some more Storms and some more Dark Templar to feed our giant Archon. Look at all these units getting stormed. There's not that many units left. Frankly, our Storms have been doing such a good job that they really don't have a whole lot of units. Now, you'll notice that the Arbiters are keeping all of the units back here cloaked. This means that Amon, this big giant Void Thrasher, is struggling to deal actual damage to all of our DPS. We have Ulrezaj himself in front, tanking hits, whereas Amon is just getting kind of burned down, as behind the scenes, the Ulrezaj storms are slaughtering all the support that the enemies can attempt to bring forward to support their Amon. And just like that, Ulrezaj takes a big hit, and back to the respawn point he goes, where he can safely regenerate his shields. More importantly, I have the Shield Matrix card, which I've just played. That causes all of my units to fully regenerate their shields, bringing them back up to full from whatever damage they had. Now, Ulrezaj, up at 5,000 HP right now, all of it in shields, is, she's got to overrun them. Like, they can't do anything about that. And look, you can see the opponents complaining in chat that the constant storms are ruining them. Because they are, frankly. That's just how that's going down. Look, they're playing units here, and the storms are slaughtering all of their units before they have an opportunity to even fight back. Welcome to spellcasting. You'll love to see it, as we completely and utterly overwhelm them in all the best ways. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the strategy we're going for. But wait, there's more, because we go on to do another round, and it gets even more exciting, because this deck gets even more deep. You may notice there's some other things going on in the background here that I've not mentioned, and there's a reason for that. Because Ulrezaj isn't the only big unit here in this deck. Let's go ahead and see how this goes next. And we're off to round 2, where we're starting with what looks to be a pretty good start. Not only do I have Ulrezaj in my hand, but I also have Dalam Architects, which guarantees me to draw one of those support cards I so desperately need to keep him alive. As we jump right into round 2 of this wonderful, wonderful deck. I'm sorry, I've just had so much fun with this deck. It is a brand new deck. I've only played it a couple times just to see if it works, and good lord has it been wild. Now, we do have a little bit of a slow start here. I don't have any cards to play this turn. I don't have any cards to play last turn, which is not terribly surprising, all things considered, given the distribution in this deck. But we're just going to have to let it go, let the team handle things. We see the opponents here on the right-hand side getting set up with, well, buildings and a little bit of defensive play. You love to see it. What I don't like to see is this forge over here, because this forge will generate a new cannon every time they play a structure card, and cannons are detectors. As detectors, they do things like allow them to shoot my Dark Templar. So while I wait, I'm just going to get my shield batteries in hand, so we can play it when Ulrezaj needs it the most. And at this point, I don't have anything I particularly want to play. I can play the shield batteries to get it out of hand. I can play the Dark Templar. I have to play something to clear up space for more cards in my hand, but I don't feel particularly enthused to play any of these cards. Now, I'm going to play the shield batteries just because they're probably the biggest value thing here. Any of the other cards I could play, like the Nerezium Warband with the Zealots and the Dark Templar, are just going to die horribly. Like the the 3 Zealots are not going to push through what they have, and the Dark Templar, with the whole, them having several detectors on the board, is also not going to do anything. So that's not particularly enthusiastic. I don't like the idea. I'm going to have to do it anyways. But what I'm going to do instead is just get Ulrezaj out immediately and see if I can't start scaling him. Now, I do have shield batteries that can help keep him alive. I do have some teammate units in the defensive region here on the left that will help guard him. So as long as he's... I suspect he's going to be okay for the beginning here, and I think I can just start feeding him immensely. I'll need to send the Forbidden Knowledge to start getting all of those Dark Templar, and then I need to start sending the Dark Templar themselves. And this is where things become interesting, because we're going to have constant storms every turn, forever. And every turn that goes by, those storms are going to become more and more powerful. And I'm going to enjoy that. I'm going to enjoy that immensely. Now, unlike last time, we don't have anything to help Ulrezaj retreat. So if something happens to him, he gets crowd controlled or any of the other effects, he can absolutely just get obliterated. And that's a little bit unpleasant, but hopefully we'll get to see how that works out. As it stands, the opponents do have a fairly concerning amount of units on the board, so I do want to be continuously sending the big things. It is also worth noting that the units they have, like the carrier, are not particularly susceptible to storms. So I'm going to be casting the storms so I can get them out of my hand, but I'm not expecting it to do any real work. Most of the work, I suspect, here will come from Ulrezaj himself, but as a spellcaster, he doesn't really... He's tanky, but he doesn't deal that much damage, so as you notice, he's just kind of sitting there, the big, beefy HP pool. And when he takes too many hits, he'll retreat, but he didn't really do anything in the process. So in the meantime, I'm just going to keep feeding him Dark Templar, see if we can't change the status quo here. Send more units to the board, get Ulrezaj bigger, and let things scale upwards. As it stands, the opponents are going to struggle super hard to push through Ulrezaj. Like, they need some kind of single target spell removal, because if they don't, then Ulrezaj is just not going to die. Like, he's in combat while being recharged by the shield regenerators. Like, that's not... They're not breaking through that. And this is, frankly, like the best case scenario for us here as a team, because the opponents have to break through my giant Archon. I'm sending all of these very large and effective storms, and all the while I have a teammate here with these Tempests in the backline destroying their structures. Which means for so long as we are in this stalemate scenario here, these Tempests will just be destroying their structures and continuing to make their opponents basically just get attrition just to death. Look at this. Ulrezaj just back here running back and forth. Every time he takes a hit, he just runs back to the shield generators. It's beautiful. Now, similar to my teammate who's enjoying the skirmish, the deadline action here, so too my opponent is doing the same thing. So all of my shield generators are being destroyed one by one. We'll notice another one go down here at the start of the turn. And what I'm really looking for is something to escalate the saving of Ulrezaj, because he's taken a lot of hits. He's taken so many hits here. I need to desperately... Look, he's down to 300, 100 HP. He's down to below 100 shields. I need to make sure I have a Dark Templar on the board every turn in order to keep him alive. If I don't, then he doesn't have a Dark Templar to consume, and therefore he doesn't get his shields regenerated. It's worth noting that the opponent DPS isn't that high right now, but he's down below 100 HP. He consumes another Dark Templar that I've just played, bringing him back up to 400 HP, and down to 78, 72, 34, and turn ends. And look at this, guys. I have the Shield Matrix card in the hand, which fully regenerates the HP of all of my units, or all the shields of all of my units. And Ulrezaj is entirely shields, so all of that from down to 34 shields is going up to 3,150, and then plus another 350 for consuming a Dark Templar, bringing him from 34 up to 3,500. And immediately he gets targeted by enemy spellcasters and snipers, and he gets knocked down to 1,500 again, or sorry, 1,600 again. Good thing we got those shield generators up. Yes, he went down to below 100 HP. He went down to about 50 HP total before our defenses came online and kept him alive. And for it, in exchange, we get to continue our unlimited spells, which is just frankly kind of ridiculous. And, well, the opponents are going to have to deal with this giant Archon all over again. And look, our shield batteries are back because I just reconstructed new ones, so they're just going to regenerate him. He's already back up to 2,000 shields, guys. Now, as big as he is, because he does get bigger every time he consumes a Dark Templar, he doesn't actually get more damaging. He's still just a regular Archon level of DPS, which isn't all that high. He is, at the end of the day, a spellcaster, so we'll have to deal with that. Or rather, the opponents are going to have to deal with that, as I continuously send more and more and more Psionic Storms at the opponents. Forever. for at least for so long as Ulrezaj is alive. And frankly, at this point, I am so hyped because we just barely got to keep him alive here. I mean, look at that. His HP went down to so very little, and now he's on the front lines once again, being team tank, while he eats Yamato cannon after Yamato cannon. And look, he just runs off. He's like, okay, I took so many hits. I'm gonna go enjoy my shield generators again. Shield regenerators again. Look at it. This guy's ridiculous. Now this time not only am I going to be casting the uncontrollable power for the Sonic Storm, but I'm also going to cast Deadly Saboteurs, which spawns a Dark Templar and destroys one of the enemy structures. In this case, it's going to destroy that Void Ray spawner, which I'm into. I like that idea. And so he gets to Ulrezaj. Not only he takes another spell directly to the face. He takes a Mind Blast this time, knocking him down to below 1,000 HP or 1,000 shields. But at below 1,000 shields, he is vulnerable to single target removal. If he gets hit by another Mind Blast or a Solar Ray or a Yamato cannon, he just dies. So we desperately need to feed him more and more Dark Templar, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing. Not only am I casting more Sonic Storm, that's going to cluster. Look at all this Sonic Storm over here, just destroying all those units as they try to push through that choke point. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at it. And Ulrezaj is almost above. He, for a moment, got above 1,500 HP, just for a moment. But alas, is not meant to be. This time, I have choices as to what Dark Templar I'm going to send. I'm choosing to send Zeratul this time to consume him and feed him to our giant Archon. It's beautiful. This is such a ridiculous. Oh, he gets hit by another spellcast. That's another Mind Blast, and our Ulrezaj is gone. Ladies and gentlemen, they finally took him out. After all this time, we have no more Ulrezaj. So I'm just going to clear these last cards from my hand, use my Elissar archive to send them back into my deck for later spellcasting usages. But wait! There's more! You may notice a card that has been in our hand this whole time. The leftmost corner, it's Malash. He is a regular High Templar with the same kind of behavior pattern as Malash. Except, instead of spellcasting, giving us these storms to cast every turn, instead he simply becomes more powerful himself. He gets bigger, he gets more shields, and he gets more damage. So instead of being a spellcaster that lets us cast infinite storms, he himself casts a basic auto attack ability that is just a basic auto attack. It's just a basic auto attack is what it is. But it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And to make up for it, he gets more shields than Ulrezaj does. As well as his own ability to cast storms. I mean, he's a High Templar, he can cast storms himself. He doesn't have to rely on people like me to cast the cards for him. No, he's just going to exist on the board as a perpetual spellcaster of storms, which is going to be great. So we're going to go ahead and get him out here pretty quick. I would like to have some more units on the board. I'm noticing that the teammate is using stealth cards right now, so I'm going to play Queen and Pawn. And that will destroy all of the enemy detectors and allow my teammates a bit more power. But Malash will be played this turn, and that will start his sacrifice tactic. Now, just like Ulrezaj, he does sacrifice one unit at the start of every turn to get his ability. You see here that he's infused with power because he's already sacrificing my units. But I'm going to be doing something a little bit different here with him. I'm going to be using Stasis Chains. Stasis Chains will take the biggest unit I have and make it defensive. So instead of doing the tactical thing that Ulrezaj is doing, where, he runs forward, takes some hits, punches a few times, and then says, hey, I've taken too much damage, let me return back to base. No. I'm going to be turning our Malash into a purely defensive character, which means he will never leave the defensive part of the battlefield. He will always stay over here next to the shield batteries and never leave, which is amazing. And we're going to be taking advantage of that here. Now, I do need to be careful with this because Stasis Chains targets the toughest unit, which at this point I believe is my Kerrigan. So I can't do that just yet. I need to wait until Kerrigan is no longer the toughest unit by, you know, being shot until she's gone, which is the case now. So I have units on the board for my Malash to consume, and now I'm going to play Stasis Chains to make him the toughest unit I own. And with that, he's going to become defensive, and he's going to sit on the defensive side of things and just keep growing in power. Now, with that growth comes additional HP, or should I say additional shields, technically not HP, it's just effective HP, and additional auto attack damage. And every time, at the start of every turn, he also fully regenerates his energy, which he can use to cast storms himself. You'll see here he's casting a couple storms, targeting the interceptors as well as the basic Hellbats and such that are at the front line. Hellbats and Zealots on the front line. Now, where am I going to get the rest of those units in order to sacrifice? Because I don't have structures. But this is where things get interesting. Whereas Ulrezaj gave a card that summons units from my deck for him to then sacrifice, well, Malash doesn't. However, I have this card, Undying Stalker. It is a heroic Stalker unit. Nothing particularly exciting, it is a single Stalker with double HP, and plus 50% damage. Honestly, Stalkers are kind of mediocre to begin with, it's not going to make or break anything. However, every time that Stalker is destroyed, say by Malash when it's sacrificed, that card returns to my hand. This means that I can play Undying Stalker every turn, sacrifice it every turn, and have Malash feast upon this Undying Stalker forever. No reliance on buildings, no reliance on anything else. I don't even have to have cards in my deck, because Undying Stalker will always come back to my hand whenever it is destroyed off the battlefield. And look at this. The teammates are pushing. I'm not really helping with this push. Yeah, I've got a couple Dark Templar in there. You can see some cloaked units hiding underneath them. But realistically, I'm not doing a whole lot of pushing power right now. Instead, I'm playing defensive. I'm letting my Malash grow in size, grow in strength. And look, it's a Forbidden Knowledge. Remember that Forbidden Knowledge that I sent into my deck a while ago? This is going to draw me a Dark Templar card, which I can then sacrifice to Malash. And it's also going to draw a brand new Uncontrollable Power, which has already been up-tiered to cast 14 Psionic Storms, which I will then immediately cast upon this cluster of enemy units here. Look, all these enemy units on the right side, they're trying to push in. It would be a shame if something happened to them. And something is going to happen to them. It's going to be a lot of Psionic Storm, like a lot of Psionic Storm. You know, honestly, Vortex is a really good call here. Vortex will remove an overwhelming majority of those enemy units, and my storms should clean up anything left over. It's worth noting that Uncontrollable Power, you kind of have to play it the same turn you get it. Ideally, I wouldn't play the storms this turn, I would hang on to them until a better turn, but the nature of Uncontrollable Power means that I can't keep it, like, at all. So instead, I'm going to let those storms hit the high grounds before that becomes too much of a problem. Look at it. Look at all the enemy units that are being sent here. And they're all getting stormed and softened up for my teammates to then get involved. Oh look, my Undying Stalker got destroyed. It would be a shame if I sent a new one. And that is the idea. Now, you may notice another card in my hand called Archon of Justice. This has a synergy with the Undying Stalker. Every single time our Undying Stalker is sacrificed, Archon of Justice gets more powerful. Yes, you heard that right. Archon of Justice will cast one Psionic Storm. You may be seeing a theme here. One Psionic Storm per heroic unit we've lost this turn, including the Undying Stalker, because Undying Stalker is a heroic unit. So that's what's going on here. I'm just going to keep Archon of Justice into my hand and keep feeding it the lives of heroic units until the day comes when I need a whole bunch of Psionic Storms. And that's what's going to happen here. Oh look, more Uncontrollable Power. Don't mind if I do. I should have 2 more Uncontrollable Powers in my deck, but they are not in my hand right now, so I'm quite content to simply cast this one. Because, I mean, look at all those Void Rays coming at me. It would be a shame if something happened to them. Yeah, it's going to be Sonic Storm. It's going to be a lot of Sonic Storm happening to them. I think I have no units left to sacrifice on the board right now, except for this Undying Stalker, which I'm going to be playing right now. So I think this card is going to go right back into my hand immediately without the Stalker ever seeing any combat, which is fine. That's kind of the point. Nope, I did have a unit somewhere to sacrifice. Don't know where it was, but it got the sacrifice off. And it looks like we cleared the high ground. We did clear the high ground between me and my Zerg teammate here, Mr. Stratome. We managed to clear all those warp prisms from the high ground, which is nice because the enemy was festering warp prisms there. If you guys haven't seen our earlier streams where we were playing with a warp prism deck, that is the extremely terrifying deck to encounter. It is one of the strongest late game Protoss decks that can single-handedly solo like 1v3 and it's not close. So we really, 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 really desperately don't want that to happen. That's one of the reasons why I'm storming right now, because as much as I didn't need to send the Archon, I didn't need to storm right now. I really desperately want to push through this, because I'm seeing a few indicators of bad happening. Not only is this thing still alive, creating detection, but I am a banana here. He's got multiple warp gates. That's 4 warp gates, and a Templar Archives. Ooh. And we see an interesting idea. The opponents are out of draw cards. Their decks are empty, or at least one of the Terrans are empty. And so too is one of my teammates, the Zerg, who's been helping out, doing so much work. So we need to push as hard as we can through this. So I'm gonna send another Archon of Justice here to try to push through all this, because we so very desperately do not want the opponents stacking up here in the late game, is that would be a problem if they're permitted to simply exist and let it continue. Now I'm seeing a mothership core and a proper mothership, not a mothership core, a proper mothership and some big units. I'm going to cast stasis chains here in order to lock them down. This will of course lock onto my toughest unit, which will be my Malash, so that mothership will be locked in prison for so long as Malash exists and is alive, as well as any other big units they have, such as one of those battle cruisers and this large hybrid nemesis. And I'm just going to keep playing the Undying Stalker. I also have another backup card here. It's the Face Smith Carrix. He's not really part of the strategy. He's just a stall card, as I'm seeing more and more concerning behaviors from the opponents, because they just sent another Warp Prism up here. Now, the way this guy works is every time the opponent plays a Warp-In card, such as all the cards given by these Warp Gates, it duplicates it and spawns it up here. Normally, all units are spawned back here, but because he has a Warp-In point up here, it will spawn from up here as well. So that's kind of a problem. He's going to be summoning a whole bunch of units, and he'll be able to do that forever, or at least for so long as this Templar Archives exists, which is why I was wanting to push so hard, because if we don't kill that Templar Archives, he's just literally going to be summoning units from that high ground forever and duplicating his cards, which is, you know, terrifying. But here's the thing. I'm kind of out of gas in terms of offensive firepower. At this point, I'm trying to delay and rely on my teammate, who I know has an infinite deck. Just because I recognize the deck, I like to play the infinite cycle deck all the time. We did a video on it earlier on the channel. Make sure to check on that video so you can see what that looks like. But as we can see here, we have 4 Tempests coming out from my teammate. Those Tempests are going to start eating away at the opponent's base, which is exactly what we want. And for so long as that base is being eaten away, this man seriously played a second mothership. I didn't even notice this at the time. A second mothership being played. Oof. As for so long as my teammate here is playing things like the Infinite Cycle, he will eventually break the opponent's everything. All he has to do is just not die. Fortunately, I am very good at the whole not dying thing, because we have this massively growing Malash. Look, Malash is already up to 5,780 shields. And that's going to be something like 130 attack per basic auto attack here, which is a lot. Look, there's one of those warpin cards that my opponents have been sending. Just one zealot, one stalker, one sentry, which isn't all that much, but when you duplicate it, send it from the high ground and from the back line, it can get a bit tense. So all I'm trying to do here is delay. Now, Carex, that unit I played earlier, its gimmick is that it generates a brand new card from the field. It just duplicates a card that's on the field and puts it into my hand, which is pretty good. It's not actually that good. Like, it genuinely isn't very good at all. But what it does do is it prevents me from decking out. Like, I have 3 cards in my deck, which is not many cards in my deck, and I really desperately do not want to be part of the problem. I don't want my units or my buildings and our base to be taking empty deck damage, exhausted damage. I'm just trying to delay as much as possible, and that's why the Carex is here. But I just saw something that is terrifying to me. Because while the opponent's buildings are slowly burning down and taking damage from my teammates sieging them and such, they've added a second one of these warping points. So now instead of simply duplicating, they're triplicating, which is terrifying because he's gonna be playing a lot. He's gonna be playing a lot of units up there. Like, you know, he played 1 zealot and 1 sentry, and 2 sentries and 2 zealots came from up here. And oh look, a third one is appearing. And I can tell you, if you guys saw what we were doing last stream, he will be sending a brand new warp prism up there every turn forever, or until this Templar Archives is destroyed. So we really, really need to be pushing through as quickly as possible. As you can see, my Malash has just trying desperately to hold the line. Look, he's casting storms himself, and at this point, he's one-shotting units. Look at his little water balloon that he's throwing up there and just one-shotting zealots and everything else. He's up at 74 kills, and that's going to be counting. Now, I'm going to use my Carex Invention here. If you guys have seen this card before, like say during the Infinite Cycle, it will replenish my deck with all of my mechanical units. I don't have an infinite cycle here with this. This is literally just throwing a few more units into a few more cards into my deck just so that I lose slower. I'm desperately relying on my teammate here to push through. And that's what he's doing. The enemy are using a planet cracker, which will destroy all of our ground units, period. But my teammate here is running mostly air units. You see he's got 3 carriers that are pushing. And, well, one of the carriers and his scout has gotten stuck dealing with this, but that is fine. Look at these 3 spawn points and 1 Colossi per spawn point, because, of course, that's what's happening. So all I'm trying to do right now is just hold this line. Just hold the line. I have Malash here. He's got 3,000 HP and taking a lot of damage in the process. But look, my Arbiter comes in to save the day, casting Stasis and all these units. He's 2-shotting the Colossi, and now he's going to roll back here and get some of his shields regenerated. Oh boy. I just need to not die while my teammate is taking advantage of all these Stasis units to run past them with his giant army. I actually do have a couple units in here, which is a surprise to me, and try to break it. And that he did. He broke their Templar Archives, so no more is there going to be an infinite spawn of these. He will still have some, because he'll still have some in his deck. And you'll see here that there's a giant army summoning every turn here, but at this point, we have Malash, who's one-shotting Zealots, and he's got Storms of his own. Look, we have Arbiters stasising everything. All we have to do is have Malash hold the line long enough for the teammate to win the game for us. But guys, I don't think you understand. With 4 of these spawn points up here, this guy is just going to keep... I mean, look at this giant army that's summoning. It's just going to keep summoning. Like, it will not stop. He's going to have an unlimited amount of units coming up here. And all I can do is try to hold the line as long as possible. It's rough. Yes, I have some cards in my deck, but we know what those cards are, and they're all terrible. They're just basic things I could use to sacrifice to our Malash here, as he tries. And the worst part is, Malash is holding things like battle cruisers, motherships at bay. As the teammate pushes through, we're destroying structures, but the carriers, they've lost all their interceptors. all of these units, I mean, look at this. This alone is enough to win the game just in a 1v3 scenario. And this is not something anyone can hold off forever. We're relying on stasis from the Arbiters to keep them back, and just Malash to barely keep it going. All we have to do is have my teammate here destroy the enemy face. As more and more, oh my god, more and more, 4 more disruptors summoning in. As Malash is trying so desperately. He's up to 111 kills, 113, 114. Every time he fires a shot, he goes down. But wait, there is more. We have more than 1 Undying Stalker. We're now going to be sending 4 Undying Stalkers. 2 from this card, 1 from this card, 1 from this card. And each one of them becomes an Undying Stalker card. That's right. Every time we played Undying Stalker, it adds a copy to my hand. There is still a copy in my discard pile. Uh-oh. Malash is just taking the full firepower of the entire enemy, as here come the Arbiters to save the day, stasising a bunch of those units. But as we've made a copy of all these Stalkers, what ends up happening is when we bring Carracks in, it Carraxes each and every one of them, and duplicates every one of them into the hand for me to play again. So I'm going to have like something like 15 Undying Stalkers on the board at some point, which, while cool, is pitiful compared to the sheer quantity of nonsense vomiting out of these decks, out of that high ground every turn. As Malash, he's down to below 1000 HP, and he's gone. They killed him. This means the mothership is free. It's now cloaking the enemy base. We no longer have the ability to damage it. All of these giant units have been freed, the hybrid, and after all of this, the line breaks, but it's okay. My teammate brought him down to below 100 HP. The enemy units will take empty deck damage for overdrawing their cards. They've run out of cards, and they bleed out at the cusp of victory. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Keystone playing this absolutely giant deck. I can't. This has been wild, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. So make sure to hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, because I got more content like this coming out every single week, multiple times a week. But for now, I'll see you guys later.